session will be moderated by Mr. Clement E. Song. Joining up on this session is the Managing Director, NNPC Retail Limited, Mr. Hugh Stockman. Mr. Bob Dickerman will also be joining this session right away. He's the Managing Director, Pinnacle Oil and Gas. Mr. Ian Brown, the Managing Director, WAV Inspect Limited, is also joining on this session. Also on this panel is Dr. Billy Gillis Harry. He is the National President, Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria, Petroan. Elder Chinedu Okoronkwo is also joining this panel. I understand he has a representative who is speaking on his behalf from the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN. And finally, we will welcome the Managing Director of Fuel Metrics, Mr. Ayodeji Ogundiran.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to this session. I like to think that this is the session where, like they say, the rubber meets the road. It is the practical session where hopefully we will share best practices and chart a way forward for the industry together. Quite a number of us had presentations, so what I have done is we will cut some of the presentations and reduce it to just a few of us making the presentations. So to start with, we're supposed to be talking about the operations in the industry. We have had deregulation, if I can set the context, since I think it was the end of May. And it's been a pretty volatile, pretty rough ride. And I'd like to see how we are getting by and what we are doing to adjust to the new reality. So I'd like to start with Hugh, who is the MD of NNPC Retail, NRL, but also the chairman of MOMAN. Perhaps, can you share with us your vision as to what deregulation, what the downstream should look like when it comes to maturity?
All right. I think my microphone works because I can hear myself. I think so. Deregulation happened, and it was something that, as an industry, we basically asked for it for many years. So, and I think we wanted it to happen. But I think we all realize that when you do deregulation, and when you look at deregulations in other countries, and I was in a couple of countries where that happened, is that it will always have some transition challenges. I've not seen a country where it was smooth, perfect sailing from day one. Especially if it was a regulated market for many decades, it takes a bit of getting used to. Both for the consumers, but also for the industry. So I think it will take a little time for things to settle down. And I must admit that even as NNPC Retail, we're having our challenges. Certain things are not going as smooth, and are not going as well as we would like them to go. So we understand that, and we're not probably alone in that. So it is an adaptation for us, but also our dealers, in terms of this new reality. So we've had some and I understand that there are tough moments in there. Now we realized as a retail business, PMS was our mainstay. If you asked a dealer what he sold, probably 8 out of 10 will say, I sell PMS. And that was basically what they made their money with. And we all know that probably at least 80%, if not more, maybe even 90% of the fuel that's sold on the retail side used to be PMS. So it's no surprise that many people felt that that was their bread and also their butter. But of course, that has dropped. Post-deregulation, the demand in the country has dropped. and that's for all of us. I don't think anybody can stand here today and say they are selling more PMS than they sold before deregulation, unless they've added some sites to their network. So as an industry then, not just as NMPC retail, but as an industry then, you need to say, okay, so how do I keep my sites profitable? Because this demand will suddenly not, by magic, go up again. So you need to realize you're working in a new reality. Because at the end of the day, it's all about site profitability. We're not talking about profitability of a product. We're talking about profitability of a site. Hence, we need to look at what else can we do on a site to basically make the site profitable and hence our business sustainable. And those solutions we might not only find at the moment only in Nigeria. Of course, in Nigeria we can do things better. We can share more best practices. We can focus on making our businesses more safe. We can share best practices on operational excellence. Of course, still whilst being competitors, but I do think that sometimes if you work better together, you can also win better together. But I think the reality is that, and I've worked many years outside Nigeria, and I've worked for many years also in Europe and the US. If you look at the site profitability for both a oil company but also the dealer, it's not the fuel anymore, and it's certainly not the PMS. They had to change their way of working and the way they run the site. So we will have to do the same. We can't count on PMS being our bread and butter. You'll have to make sure that also you always have diesel available. There's still diesel demand in the country. You have to make sure that even if you have the opportunity to sell lubricants, that you have it available. If the customers come to you for LPG, you need to have that available. You need to find maybe other things that your site can be used for. One of the beautiful things of a retail site, and a gasoline or a fuel site is footfall. You can count on people going into your site day in, day out, which makes it interesting also for, let's say, other things than just fuel or lubricants or LPG. And some of us and many of us are already doing that, but it will have to become an even bigger part of what we're doing to make the site profitable. Being it QSR, being it a bit of convenience, being it banking services, being renting out space to other third parties, having a lube bay, having a car wash, but also looking more ahead. Not just that. Think about CNG, think about electrical vehicle charging or just electrical charging. Because it might not just be a car that you charge, it might be also another vehicle that you charge. Now, some of you might say that's a long way away, but as I also say, when we deregulate it as a country, yes, you can. Okay. Oh wow, this is scary. I think they can now hear me outside the hotel. So anyway, do I now have to start all over again, or? Oh, all right.
Well done.
Oh gosh, because I can never tell something twice in the same way. But I think we need to look when deregulation happens. Basically, the new future of retail in Nigeria started, and I think that is something that we need to realize. We're in an environment where we are competing with each other for the money of the customers, and they've got many choices. I've always said that Nigeria has the most proliferated amount of brands and retail brands in the world. So our customers can go anywhere, and they'll choose on the basis of customer service. They'll choose on the basis of other services that they can get. They choose on the basis of that they count on you, that you will always have the product that they're looking for. So I think they count on you that you might be, if you think about it, that you will be, let's say, forward or progressive in bringing other things to your site. So I think as an industry, we both need to look in how we can work maybe in fronts where we can, from competition laws, to work better together in terms of best practice sharing. But I think also as an industry we need to realize that with deregulation, the future of retail actually got another kickstart. And we'll have to look at different ways to make and keep our sites profitable whilst providing the best possible service at all times, every time to our customers. That's my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. I think that's a good overview. Essentially, what you say is that the world has changed and that the world of retail in particular has changed, and we need to find ways of making the retail side more profitable. So this is coming from you, who is an integrated company. Perhaps we should dive back to the very beginning. So I'll come to you, Bob.
It's not a secret that our energy market is highly inefficient. Comparisons with other countries, developing countries and developed countries, clearly demonstrate this across the value chain. Upstream, downstream, natural gas, and even alternative fuels. But if we can learn from the experience of other markets who have gone through major transitions from nationalization of their oil industry to privatization, the word deregulation can be confusing. These are more specific words. From a national oil company to a private sector market, a market with buyers and sellers. From an industry that is 100% funded domestically to one that is mostly globally funded. And from primitive technologies to technology-driven industries, the lesson is that efficiency and effective markets are about the only solution that can optimize value. Next slide. So what does Nigeria need long term? And forgive me for being so pretentious as to tell you, but here's an opinion. We need a healthy economy. We need the ability to service our debt. We need massive job creation, and we need a massive increase in productivity across the economy. Nigeria has many, many natural resources and human resources, but very little domestic capital. Even the total capitalization of our banks is not what it should be. So the key is foreign capital, foreign direct investment. What is going to cause overseas investors and developers and bankers to invest in Nigeria's oil and energy sectors? It's not a secret. We need to encourage and enable competitive markets. Encourage and enable. We need to be fiscally responsible. No, go back a slide, please. And intolerant of corruption. We need to invest in an enabling infrastructure, power, roads, rail, financing, all of it. And we need to have an unrestricted, globally convertible currency. Put yourself in the shoes of a potential investor that wants to invest in the downstream sector, in a pipeline, in retail stations, in a depot, and think about the concerns that they have, the key risks that are in their mind. Will I be able to repatriate my profits? Will be the first thing on their mind. With these priorities, the investment will come. There isn't any strong action that our government or our leaders need to take other than these market supporting actions. The investment will come. And foreign exchange, hard currency, will be available, and the gross domestic product will grow, and jobs will be created. And I don't mean to be Pollyannish, but poverty would be reduced. This is going to take time. Next slide. Forgive the simple thing, but sometimes coming back to first principles makes a difference, and it can help us to understand where we are right now. Yes, I'm going to get to downstream. But what is a market? A market is a voluntary exchange with many buyers and many sellers. At a market price, there's always plentiful supply. Markets are by themselves the most efficient way to allocate resources and produce goods and services. I'll tell you a personal story from the US. In 1974, in reaction to OPEC, President Nixon put in place something called a wage and price controls regime. And because they were concerned about high prices, they decided we were going to allocate, we're going to control prices, not just domestic production of crude oil, but also the allocation of petroleum products. It was a disaster. I'll spare you the whole story. But it turns out that no government is smart enough to allocate scarce resources better than a market can. Government interference in markets can distort prices. It can reduce, doesn't always, but it can reduce competition. It can harm consumers. That's who this is all for, is the consumers. Examples of interference can include price controls or tariffs or subsidies of any kind. Interference in the Nigerian oil and gas industry could lead to higher prices for consumers, less investment in new technologies, and reduced domestic production. Next slide. We've had 46 years of price subsidy that just ended in this country, which sends to the world, that's our audience here, below market signals. It reduces an incentive to supply and ultimately hurts consumers. Now, this was covered a little bit in the last session, but when we are in an import market, as long as this lasts, and I pray it doesn't last much longer, but as long as we are in an import-only market, the cost of landed PMS, which is the only product that we're talking about here at the moment, is an international price and an FX cost. And here's the math. I showed the formula. You see the highlighted numbers? Those are the only variables. It's a very simple equation. The international price is dollars per metric ton. You can look it up on Argus, you can look it up on Platts, you can look it up on the Intercontinental Futures Exchange. But you multiply that by the cost of $1 because it's all priced in dollars and it must be converted to Naira. And then you divide by, just for the units, to convert tons into liters. And that's it. That gets you your Naira per liter. And then you add the costs of handling, of wholesale, of freight, of retail costs, including margins. But that's it. It's very simple. So we no longer have a subsidized international oil price. Anyone who imports, whether it's NNPC or private industry, is paying a global price. But what we were talking about in the last session, and we're talking about now, and what is in the press a lot, is that there's still an issue with the FX cost, a big issue, because only one importer has access to FX below the market level. And all other marketers have to pay the market price for FX, which is 1,280 Naira per dollar today. 1,280, it was 600 in June. We've lost half of our purchasing power in 4 months, which is why there's only one importer of PMS today. Next slide. The impact of this dual FX market is it has a tendency to discourage foreign investment because it restricts expatriation of profits. It can also discourage investment because the government or the central bank, I'm not saying that they would, but could change the rules if they wish in order to allocate the scarce FX. It is scarce. We're an import economy. That's why FX is scarce. If we were manufacturing, if we were exporting agricultural products, if we were exporting trades and materials that we were making here in this country, we would not have this global problem. But we do. It's the nature of the country's economy. So virtually the only FX earned is from crude oil sales. So if one company uses FX from crude sales to subsidize products purchases, the private industry cannot compete. That point has been made. I don't want to drill that home too much. And that can cause any marketer, wholesale, retail, or both, to fail because you cannot afford to buy high and sell low and stay in business. Not in a commodity business. That's not how commodity works. Efficiency will suffer, and it could inhibit even local investment, not just international, but even local investment in new businesses. Next slide. So in summary, we really need, as a country, massive foreign direct investment. It's urgent. We need it now, and we need it for a long time. Our planning should consider this need. FX policy is the prime inhibitor of a free downstream market. Currently, we have one sole importer due to this FX cost advantage. Wholesale and retail players today are in jeopardy as a result. I'm telling it like it is. Short-term suffering among the public is, of course, a very real concern, and it's why we have subsidies, is to address the short-term pain. But we must consider the long-term at the same time. We cannot ignore the long-term implications of short-term palliatives. Subsidy is a form of palliative, just like handing out cash. And in some countries, a national oil company that is well capitalized and efficient is working and can work. Saudi Aramco is a classic example, but not here right now. It doesn't seem to be. And ultimately, it really is foreign investment that is needed to salvage the economy as a whole. I'm making broader statements than about downstream and relieve public suffering sustainably. So prayer is for the best minds in government to adjust current policy to address both the short-term issues and the longer-term needs to help attract FDI for investment and for long-term economic growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
So I think essentially what you are asking for is the full implementation of the regulation, particularly a single exchange rate. I think there is general alignment around that in the whole country. So just to finish with the logistics part, Ian, what do you have? How can we manage while we're waiting for this El Dorado?
What we need to do at the moment as an industry as a whole, whilst we're going through this and whilst we've got the margins are being squeezed and we, okay, you fine, you actually got me there. Thought you were asking a question. Right, so I was answering. Okay, what I want to have a discussion about is a bit more of a practical issue rather than the overview as a market, is what we as an industry can do to help ourselves whilst we're going through the pain that we're going through with the squeeze margins that we're having. So what I want to do is certainly what I've been doing for the last 40 years, regardless of who I've worked for, is working with loss control, losses, and analysing what actually goes on and how we can actually, because every litre that you save on this goes on your bottom line. So what we need to do, certainly whilst in the short term, is certainly in the current pricing regime that we have, is pay a lot more attention to detail on the supply chain and all the leakages that can occur during that supply chain. Next slide, please. Losses don't exist. You'll probably disagree with me, but losses don't exist. They can't exist. You know, we do have unexplained differences. Obviously we do. But if one person gets a loss, another person's got a gain. It all balances out. So that is why we have to discuss. So, next please. So overall, we have the gasoline supply chain. Look here, a lovely picture from the EIA. That's actually a very good representation of what happens in Nigeria, but somewhat over-complicated. So we'll go next slide, please. So we'll blank out the bit that's got nothing to do with us at this conference. So we'll go from the imported gasoline, going to storage, and as you can see, vessel loading operations, vessel discharge operations, fuel tank receipts, as we say, truck distribution. That's what at every single point of there, we have an opportunity for a leakage or a loss or whatever going forward, please. So every single point, as you can see here in red, you've got A to B to C to D to F to E, F. So I just want to explain where we have. So every potential, you have a loading loss. For instance, on an STS operation to your receiving vessel, there can potentially be a loss. In transit loss, your ship leaves point A, arrives at point B, and you're trying to work out why you've got a difference. The ship's not gone anywhere, the cargo's gone nowhere. The discharge loss, the ship starts discharging, discharge to the storage tanks. What you've got? So you're trying to work out, ship discharged this got here, why haven't I got the same? There's always a perpetual question. Once you've got that, you've established, okay, I've got a level playing field here, I know what I've got. You go and truck it out, for some reason you don't get the same as you put in. And then a distribution loss, your truckloads, goes to your retail station, and for some reason what you receive in the retail station doesn't equal the same as you left the depot. And the same happens on your retail loss, because once it's received in there, for some reason your bills, the cash that you have actually generated from your sales does not equal what you put into that. That is a common way it looks. So next slide. So as you can see, that's a little bit clearer to see without the picture. So you've got 6 particular lines there where you will actually get some kind of discrepancy, shall we say, unexplained discrepancies. Next please. So these numbers here are not what your losses you expect to be. What I've shown you here is numbers which are before anybody raises a red flag, when everybody's doing an inspection or whether anybody is looking at the business as a whole. These are before anybody will raise a red flag and say, oh, we've got a problem. So here, your loading loss, nobody thinks about it unless it's over 0.3%. In-transit loss, unless it's greater than 0.2%. Discharge loss 0.3, storage loss 0.2, maybe. Distribution loss 0.5 if you're lucky, and a retail loss 0.5. I'm not too sure. I'm sure the guys in retail can probably give me better at different numbers. But go to the next page. If you've got a loss from your bill of lading to your storage, maybe you'll get a 0.5% excess and then you can claim on your insurance. I don't know anybody here who's ever made a claim on marine insurance in Nigeria on a discharge operation. But so next slide. Next. Overall, they add up to 2.2%. If you're really unlucky, you could experience 2% and nobody's actually put their hand up in the air to say, we've got a problem. Next. Now, on the storage side, if you're throughputing, you may even find that the storage contract, you can't even make a complaint unless you've got a 0.5% difference. And believe me, it has been known that everybody makes sure that there's a 0.5% difference. Next. And a lot of trucking operations, they'd be very happy with 0.5%. Running to 1%, this is what happens. Some are better than others, but this is where you can go. Next. So, try to keep this reasonably quick. This is a bit of an example for a guy, small to large, 5,000 tons a month, maybe 60,000 tons a year. Potentially, at the beginning of the year, the total value of his supply chain, if he managed to get every litre sold, was around about 16 billion naira. As of yesterday's price at 626 naira a litre, that his own supply chain is worth about 50 billion. Huge increase. So the value of potential 2% loss has increased threefold, from maybe 300 million to 1 billion naira on his whole transaction. This is a huge amount. But the value has gone up. So next, please. Can I have the next slide, please? So we're feeling squeezed margins. So everybody's under pressure to try and reduce their costs, in order to try and at least maintain the margin to some extent. So what is happening is vendors, everybody who does, is being asked to, shall we say, participate in cost reduction exercises. That's a nice way of putting it. I think ExxonMobil started to call it at one time. What they mean is reduce your prices, because we're all having a hard time. So everybody should feel the pain. So then, this is what I've been doing for a long time, or been involved with, and they are an integral part of the supply chain. Certainly from the marine side up until the discharge operations. Not necessarily once you get into the storage, from the storage operation down to the downstream last mile. The definition of a third-party inspection company, and I got this, believe it or not, I got ChatGPT to come up with this for me. To be honest, it's not very clever. Is an unbiased verification, both the volume and quality specification of petroleum products during a custody transfer operation. We've seen 5 different places where custody transfer operations take place. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, many operators and inspection agencies consider third-party inspections as reporting function only. The operators are demanding but rarely getting answers, and nobody's ever expecting to get an answer to some of the problems anyway. I know that. I spent 15 years doing it, trying to demand them and failing. So now, we're trying to do that. Before, I was running an inspection company where we tried, and we weren't always great at it either. But it is a real problem. So, next slide. So the problem, current pricing environment is we need to save money. And unfortunately, you need to be able to find somebody who can differentiate and give you a service. We need to expect more than a reporting function from those people who are working for you. And if they can't provide better than anybody else, then quite frankly, they're a commodity. And yes, they should be part of your price reduction exercise. So this is all about, practicalities. But if you find somebody who can help you, you need to see what they can do. Next slide. So the conclusion is, in the value chain, we have to monitor every stage of the value chain. You need to invest maybe more resources internally or externally in order to analyze where you are incurring costs, incurring losses, so that you can stop them, you can mitigate them, find out your reasons. There is no such thing as a loss. There is an unexplained difference. If you can explain that difference, you're almost all the way to trying to find an answer to actually not just maintain the margin you have, but increasing the margins as well. And that's basically what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Yes.
There's no such thing as a loss, only unexplained differences. Okay, thank you. So some things we can't do anything about, some things we can. Let's get into the retail side of the business now. So Dr. Billy, tell us, your organization, what are you doing? What are we doing in order to support members? Let's talk about peer reviews. The authorities talked about that yesterday.
Well, thank you so very much. I hope my voice is not too loud. All right. First of all, I'd like to give a little background on what Petron is all about. I think I have a slide that they could just show what Petron does. Petron is actually a little of everybody. We are managing the last mile in the downstream distribution value chain. So we have our bosses, the major marketers, the depot marketers, the independent marketers, NATO, and also the those who have storage facilities that make up our membership. And our service is very simple. We try to fill in the gap where there seems to be some. The most notable thing that Petron is doing is efficiency and also ensuring that there's profitability for our members. Yesterday we heard a very critical statement that businessmen don't like to be regulated. I was happy that the MD of MRDEB, who is a member of Petron also, answered to it, but I would like to just give a little bit more spunk to it. We like regulators to regulate our business because the petroleum downstream business is a very, very essential one. It's where our basic energy is fueled from, and so regulation is important. But beyond that, we hold ourselves accountable for what is needing to be done to make the industry more efficient, profitable, and also accountable. So for instance, Moman in the last 3 years or thereabout has always called on stakeholder meetings to review what is the challenge of every segment of the downstream strata. And in those areas, we have clearly shown that we want to bring to the fore best practice in all ramifications. We want the buying public to know that we will not take advantage of pricing. We also want the regulators to know that we can also contribute to how effective regulation can be made to bear profitably in the business, because we are not in retailing business for charity. We're in retailing business for profit. Without profit, we cannot restock, and so our stations cannot be wet. So this peer review consistently has made, and of course I have been very vocal in those meetings, that this need to be done even 4 times a year minimum, so that we can see what's going on in Petron, what's going on in Ipman, what's going on in Dapman, what's going on in Moman, what's going on in NATO, all of the stakeholders. So that way we can all be working together with common values, even though our services and our commitment to the Nigerian public is different. So as far as we are concerned, consistent peer review is the way to go to even help regulators to do their work better with us. Because you can want to regulate a process that the industry is not really very amenable to because it's hostile to business. So as much as we want regulation to be having the face of a human being that is able to make Nigeria grow. So other than that, I will also like to look at what is the current state of retailing. I'm sure most of you this morning must have gone through so many of our members' stations, and you find the stations locked up. They are not selling. Or the cost of the buying price just was a little bit spiked up to 608, 610, 620, 650, 630, depending on where you're coming from. We want to emphasize that we support the regulation completely, because that's the way to go. We are not going to be borrowing 700 trillion naira that we don't have in Nigeria to be paying just subsidy for PMS, not for any other thing, but for PMS. And 7 trillion naira can do quite a lot. It can fix our refineries, it can build roads, it can give us hospitals, it can give so many things, that will be able to make our social and economic standards very high. So in as much as we support the regulation, and we are supportive and happy that the president has the political will to declare that subsidy is gone on the day he was being sworn in. But as stakeholders, we have always sat within ourselves to look at the dynamics of how the regulation can be effective, how it can be done in such a way that the Nigerian public don't suffer. And we thought that that should have been the way to go, because at the end of the day, it's not about politics. It's about leading Nigeria in a way that you leave a legacy, values, valuable legacies. We think that there should have been a plan to think about the regulation one day before the regulation is removed and subsidy is completely removed, to be able to evaluate what should happen on the day that the regulation and for subsidy removal is effected, and at least one day into the future of what will happen when the regulation sets in and subsidy is completely removed. I believe it's not too late for us as stakeholders to be able to work with the government of the day and encourage the subsidy removal regime to stay, but to work out quickly adequate ideas that should be able to make Nigerians to enjoy the benefit of the oil and gas status they have in the country. And there are quite a lot that we could do. Our stations that are members of other associations also have given indication that they are willing to submit their retail outlets for the CNG, for autogas, even for LNG, for this transition energy that's so bantered. And we need the public to understand exactly what that means. So we will want to encourage the government of the day to call a stakeholder meeting, serious stakeholder meeting that is devoid of politics. Let's focus on how economy can be driven more efficiently and effectively. And I think right in this hall here, all the knowledge that's required to make sure that subsidy is removed and does not pain the Nigerian economy is here. And we could transport it to Abuja and all the other nooks and crannies of this country to make sure that we are very, very successful. Other than that, I want to encourage the public to be patient with this deregulation regime that's on. I hope that in no distant time, we should be able to get around it and understand exactly what to do. As far as my members are concerned today, we are having difficulties in procuring products, because on the 30th of May, we could buy 45,000 liters of petroleum product for maximum of 8 million, including the landing cost. But today, each of that product will require about 25 million. And the banks are not forthcoming with any money to help us. So 25 million naira is not what angel investors can give. So we also need to look at that and encourage the government to think really about how to set up an energy bank that should be able to work efficiently and effectively with the stakeholders. I think these ideas could be able to drive a more efficient depot management and retail outlet. But like I said, consistent peer review is important, so we hold ourselves accountable and we make sure that we show the public that we're efficient and we're going to do as much as possible to ensure that we succeed in making Nigeria great again. I have quite a lot of ideas and issues that I want to raise, but my colleagues have gone very far to present a lot of things, and I want us to look at how that works. In addition to what Mr. Ann just said, losses are a major problem for us in our retailing business. So Petron has looked inwards to develop a local technology that is called Petroleum Product Passport. It's a simple technology that is able to monitor end-to-end what petroleum product that is loaded and delivered and how to secure that product end-to-end with what we call the 3P seal. The 3P seal is an electromagnetic device that can make sure that nobody gets unlawful access to your product. So you cannot hijack any product anymore. You cannot smuggle our products anywhere, because you can only be authorized from a central port. And of course, we hope that the NNPC, Morman, everybody is going to be able to use that technology to ensure that we make our retail operation more successful. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Billy. Thank you. So I will go to Mr. Dele Tajudeen, the Zonal Chairman, Ipman Southwest, representing Elder Chinedu. Tell us, how is Ipman surviving the deregulation?
Good afternoon, everyone. Straight away, let me introduce Ipman. Ipman means Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. And we are members and petrol stations across the country, even where you cannot find NNPC retail, where you cannot find major marketers, like in the nooks and crannies of this country. Well, energy, as we all know, the importance of energy cannot be overemphasized. It is important for our economy, and there is no how we can survive without energy. However, I must commend the President for taking the political will to remove the subsidy, because I've said it in many fora that we are just postponing the evil days. Subsidy must come. It's not limited to Nigeria alone, it's all over the world. So the die is cast, and the reality is at our doorstep. And of course, it is legislated in PIA bill. So it is no more business as usual. We have to take the reality, the bull by the horn. So, as I've said, subsidy is not limited to Nigeria alone. It has its own advantages and disadvantages. But let us look at the advantages. You see, where there is competition, there's going to be efficiency. That is because today, the petrol subsidy has been removed like any other product. Diesel was removed, kerosene was removed, so petrol has been removed now. Though we have initial itches, but which I believe at long run we are going to get over it. So when there is more competitors, because by the time we have our refineries working, we have our depots working, because as of today, the 21 depot NNPC operates. Without missing word, none of the depots are working out of the 21 depots in Nigeria. And the only option that we independent marketers have now is to the private depot. But once this depot starts working, a marketer in Kaduna doesn't have any business coming to Lagos to come and load product because there's a refinery in Kaduna. There is a depot in Minna, Niger State. There's a depot in Yola. There's a depot in Maiduguri. So it also eases the traffic on the road, and the cost of transportation will be lesser, because you can imagine if you are transporting product from Lagos to Maiduguri, it costs you over 2 million naira, and at the end of the day, the cost is passed on to the end user. So I can assure you that what we are witnessing today, by the time we are into serious food deregulation, that is, all the refineries are working, we are not importing product, and we can access NNPC depots, the price will definitely come down. So, and I've talked about efficiency. When we compete, you will recall that in those days, you have petrol stations without canopies. Today, if you have a petrol station without canopy, you can be sure that nobody is going to come to your station. That's the essence of competition. So, at long run, I'm very sure that we'll have the benefit. Well, we also have the current challenges, which I believe part of it is from government, part of it is from we people. Because when you have people smuggling product out of the country, yes, we'll blame ourselves, but we also blame government, because there are supposed to be government agencies around the borders. But when there is connivance among people, so, but if our prices is almost at par with other countries, so smuggling will be a thing of past. And government also, as I have said, there are strangulating policies that is killing. But however, I believe what we need to do, because this is not the time to blame anybody, what we have to do is to synergize, to work together, to see to the success of the deregulation, because it is a reality. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it. The only thing government can do is to intervene. It's only intervention government can do now, but subsidy has been removed. So we will have time to time dialogue with government, because going on strike is not necessary in order to move this country forward. But I hope government will have the listening here for us, so that when we talk to them about our problems, they will listen. That will not lead to strikes. Yes, as of today, we also have issue of transportation. You will recall that most of our transportation is done by trucking. By the time we have railways working and all the depots working, the transportation will be better than the way it is now, because currently you have so many road accidents that takes lives and property. So I believe this is a part of something that government has to do. Well, government came up with this deregulation, but in my own opinion, they are not well prepared, because all the machinery that was supposed to put in position before the regulation, like that of the depot, was not there. But it is not too late. Government is still we are still going to complain that to government, and I believe that the regulation at the long run is going to benefit us in this country. Let us embrace it. Let us work together. And I want to appeal to all the critical stakeholders in the industry. we have to come together, we have to synergize, we have to cross-fertilize ideas, we have to work together. This is not the time to say, I am Ipman, I am Moman, we need ourselves. And I want to say, Ipman is very, very important when it comes to retailing, because we have the largest and highest number of filling stations. So I am appealing to the stakeholders that we are sitting down together here today, especially the MD of the retail, that there is need for us to work together and to listen to the complaints of independent marketer. Also, I want to appeal to us to look for alternative, like CNG energy. It's also an alternative to petrol, so that if you cannot afford petrol, you can also use CNG for your vehicles. So government also has a responsibility in this, because conversion is very key, and the amount of installing a CNG in a petrol station is very high. So I will appeal to government to assist the marketers in installing the CNG tanks and pumps in our various filling stations, so that you can either go for PMS or go for CNG. When gas was introduced, so many people said it was not going to be possible. We were used to kerosene then, but today the era of kerosene is gone. Even the woman on the street that fry cake, beans cake and the rest, they are using gas today. So I want to assure us that at long run, we are still going to key into CNG, and it will reduce the use of petrol. Once again, I want to thank the OTL for organizing this event today, so that we can feel and hear our opinion. And we cannot say everything here or today, but I believe that the critical stakeholders will also meet, and we will meet constantly to discuss how best we can move this country forward in the era of deregulation. Like I said, it has come to stay. No blame game. We all need to work together to see to the success of this regulation. And I want to appeal to government that whatever benefits that might arise in terms of cash gain from deregulation must be deployed to other critical infrastructures like education, like hospitals, so that people will, you lose one thing from this side to get another thing from the other side. So once again, I thank you for organizing this program. You are most welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so finally, we have Ayodeji. You have a presentation for us. You will help us save costs, I understand.
Okay, so it's no longer news that the downstream industry has experienced some significant changes since the deregulation. Prior to the deregulation, companies do not necessarily need to depend on the operations at the retail to be successful. You could be successful from your depot, and you could be profitable from your operations at the depot. And the reason was simple. You were not responsible for bringing in the product. NNPC was bringing in the product. All that needs to happen is for NNPC to be in a throughput agreement with you, and you have activities going on at your depot. So regardless of what's happening at the station, as a marketer with strategic investment, you could play competitively. Okay? But that's changing with the regulation. We know we are not seeing the full changes. We know as of today, NNPC still brings in most of the product. Okay, you can skip 2-3 slides ahead. Okay, the previous one, please. All right. But in the event of today's reality, and when it comes into full play, that is going to change. As you're bringing in product, every other depot is bringing in product, NNPC is bringing in its own product, and everyone needs to optimize their forecourts to be able to sell those products as quickly as possible to stay competitive, right? And prior to the regulation, pricing was uniform. So for the customers, for us buying to fuel our car, we primarily optimized for just one trust factor. And what was that trust factor? We just wanted an assurance that the quantity that you dispense at your pump was what you promised. So if I pay for 10 liters, I just want to get 10 liters. And that was all I was bothered about as a customer, right? The prices were not significantly different from one station to the other. They were all in the same band. But today, with the regulation, with price regulation effected, that changes. And the customers start looking for other parameters. Please, next slide. Okay, so what's the customer looking for? He's looking for competitive prices. He knows today that I can get different price at NNPC, different price at Adova, different price at MRS, and he's looking to optimize his cost to say, where do I get the best value for my money, right? That's one new parameter that was not there 6 months ago. Next slide, please. Because many of us now can bring, previous one please. Many of us can now bring products directly for ourselves as necessitated by the removal of subsidy. It then means quality becomes another concern. It's possible a different brand is going to bring in a different quality, and maybe other unlicensed elements within the system can actually bring in products whose quality you cannot vouch for. So customers are now going to be watching out for, not only the price, not only getting the right quantity, but also ensuring that they are not getting bad quality products. And because businessmen are optimized for profit, it's logical to think that if your dealer sometimes can find cheaper products at some sources, they would get those products and sell to the customer, right? And the third one is supply reliability. I do not want to plan my routes expecting that if I get to this station, I'm going to buy, and perhaps it's the last one on my route, but they don't have products because their distribution process is inefficient. What happens? Maybe I need to make a detour and run into some traffic before I can correct that. The next time, I'm not going to place a bet on that, right? I'm going to buy fuel at the nearest available product. In all of this, there's someone I like to call the customer X. Today, on our forecourts, a large percentage of the transactions that happen are not, it's happening by third parties. So government officials, corporate organizations, when your drivers go to buy fuel, most times you're not in the car, right? So it's a third party buying fuel on your behalf. And many times, you're not getting value for your money. Who am I going to blame? I'm not going to blame my driver because it's not going to tell me it's the cost. I'm going to blame the brand I'm buying for. So it means that marketers not only need to solve for their own efficiency, they also need to solve the problem for customer X to be able to retain his sales. Next slide. So, given all of this reality, given all of these new dynamics, then there are some imperatives for us as operators in the industry to solve for, right? We need to employ highly effective strategies to remain profitable at the forecourt. Prices change. There was a week in this country that prices changed about 3 times between Monday and Friday, right? Prior to now, what most of us do as major marketers or large independents is you're going to send engineers going around to your retail outlet to go change those prices. So if you have 100 stations, by the time you're done changing the first round, we are probably on the 3rd iteration of price changes, right? With today's reality, you need to put technology in place that allows you to say, this is the new reality of the market, and I can respond to it effectively and immediately. The second thing we need to optimize for is real-time operational visibility. You can no longer be in the dark. It's no longer once the product leaves my depot and it gets to the station, the truck has been paid for, I'm fine. No. You actually need to know what's leaving my depot and what is being sold at my retail outlet. There's a correlation between them. That is, I'm not getting external products into my system that I cannot vouch for as a brand, right? I'm not selling lesser than I'm supposed to be selling, which means diversion could be happening as a result of my operation because I don't have visibility. So at this point, we need to have that real-time operational visibility into what we do as a business. Next, please. We need to know our customers. We need to be able to meet them at the point of their need. What do my customers want? How do they fuel? How can I upsell them? Like one of the earlier speakers said, the margins on our products sometimes will not be sufficient. and we need to sell other non-fuel products, lubricants, retail stores that might have in a convenience store that might have in a retail outlet. We need to understand our customers. We need to start thinking about data-driven loyalty program. It's not enough to say I'm 50 kobo cheaper than my neighbor. It's not enough to say I'm 1 naira cheaper than my neighbor. Customers want more, right? And that's where technology comes into play. Loss prevention. I mean, someone has spoken extensively about losses. If the margin I'm going to make on my product is 1%, you will lucky today to have 2% at the retail end. If I've made a loss of 2%, as earlier demonstrated, then what am I doing? I've lost the entire profit on the business, and it's just a matter of time. My capital will be depleting. And over time, I'll be forced to either shut down or sell the business and move on. And the last part here is distribution. Is it effective for me to have trucks parked in retail outlets when they have products, whereas the other stations are suffering? If I don't have operational visibility, I'm just doing distribution by impulse. I just know that every Tuesday I'm sending one truck to Yola. Every Monday I'm sending another truck to Kaduna. A lot of this would change because market realities will force us. You're either going to be effective in your operation or you begin to lose the market share. Next slide, please. So, talking about distribution, can you remain competitive without inefficient transport logistics? If between moving product from my depot to my retail outlets, I've lost 0.5% of the volume. Call it evaporation, call it driver theft, loss is loss. And like Mr. Ian rightly said, it's not real loss. It's just that someone is getting those value and someone else is paying for it. If you don't have effective tools in place to manage all of that, it then means that every other thing you're doing across your value chain, you can run at a loss. So how do you address the issue of transportation? Of course, it's been addressed earlier on. You need to have combination of electronic locks. How do I ensure that when I move product from point A to point B, if I lift 45,000 at point A, 45,000 is going to get to point B without an external party having access to what's in the truck? Do I know the real-time locations of my truck? Can I tell where they are? Can I tell if they've been parked in the same location for 2-3 days? Perhaps contamination of my product is going on. Do I have an alert system that tells me when things go out of place? You're picking product from Lagos to Ibadan. What are you doing in Kwara State? Right? It's not on your route. These are ways that technology can help us. And lastly, I'll just talk briefly on the depot side. So for the depot side, it's about process automation. If I'm going to go to a depot and stay 3 days on a queue versus another place where I'm going to get it in 24 hours or in 3 hours, I probably would avoid where I'm going to get on a queue for 3 days. So there has to be process automation, call-up systems to help address the issue of queue. Next, I also have storage automation. How do I know what's in my storage? What am I discharging? Your loading arms, all of this, you need to have visibility into them. It's not enough to, yes, we have software where we input system and input figures, and we expect those software to compute values, but the computer system is simply garbage in, garbage out. If we give you the wrong data, it's going to give you the wrong outputs. So, in summary, the derogation of the downstream oil and gas sector has transformed the industry dynamics. It's making it imperative for marketers to optimize various aspects of their operations while maintaining trust. Efficiency and technology adoption are crucial in the new landscape to ensure competitiveness and profitability. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayodeji. Thank you very much. So it appears quite clear that there are opportunities for us, for all of us, operators, to reduce our losses, to optimize our businesses either at the retail stations or at the depot or in transportation. I don't think I'll have time to go around everybody again. We have the opportunity of having the regulators here with us today. So we've already spoken about some issues. Some we know that they will support us, even though it's not within their control, like Forex. They will support us. What else can we ask from them since we have them listening to us today? Maybe I start with you, Dr. Bidi. Please, very short.
Well, the regulators, I think, have a very critical role to play. It's a very simple thing. Let us have a consistent meeting ground to be able to look at what's happening weekly, monthly. It doesn't have to be physical. We can have virtual meetings to be able to make decisions work. NNPC too needs to work, because at the end of the day today, NNPC is the bulk importer and the bulk distributor to all tiers. So this is what I think we can do. As far as the forest is concerned, that is a government issue. But I believe that we can still help as private sector operatives on how to be able to contribute to how our forex can be shored up. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I would only summarize that Nigeria is at an economic crossroads. We're at a critical time in this country's economic history, and I just hope and pray that the short-term solutions are reconciled with the long-term vision for the country, the economy, its people, and all of our infrastructure.
Thank you. Ian?
You know, what I need to say is I reiterate what I was saying before, certainly to the regulators. They have one of the most important parts to play in this whole thing. Certainly, for instance, on my sector on loss control, so on and so forth, to ensure the level playing field. Because as I said, in my field, it's a saturated market, and unfortunately, it's getting down to the lowest common denominator in respect to service, and that's not great for me, and it's not great for the industry. When you've got price pressures being put down, for instance, I can tell you about one operator who goes to one location for one lab test, say for oxygen nuts, and then goes to the cheapest person he can find to do the balance, because they haven't made the investment. So you've got him paying 300,000 naira for one test, the oxygen nuts, and pay 70,000 naira for the rest of the testing, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't understand how the regulator can be in two places at the same time, because they're meant to witness the testing. So they have to be able to it needs to be a level playing field in order that the investments can be made in order that we can reduce losses. So the regulators, they're thinly stretched anyway. So that particular example I gave you doesn't help anybody. And I have to ask, what is the quality of the testing that has begun and what protection the public is getting on a particular service like that? That's what's said.
Thank you. IODG, how can the regulator further support the industry?
So I think it's clear. The regulator just needs to ensure a level playing field. By removing the bottleneck that is tilting the playing field in one direction today, I think one of the most obvious one is Forex, which we know is not the regulator, but the regulator is the closest to the government in this room. So when we talk to them, we're talking to the government. And that would actually attract more private capital into the industry, which on the long run even helps solve some of the problem of the country. The regulator also needs to be watchful because in this era, like I've said earlier, their role transits away from just volumetric accountability to actual qualitative accountability, and not at the traditional places where you do them, which is when the product comes in. We now need to have spotlight even at the retail outlets. What are we selling to the customers? The quality is going to change, right? So regulators need to imbibe, I don't know if it's processes, I don't know if it's technologies, I don't know if it's partnership that allows them that visibility to be able to accurately enforce quality at the forecourts.
Thank you. And Mr. Dele Tarijini?
Thank you very much. For me, I want the regulator to be defined. As far as we are concerned and we know, NMDPRA is the major regulator. But we have had a situation whereby a civil defense officer will impound a vehicle. We have had a situation whereby a policeman will go to filling stations and start dipping products and telling you, even without testing this, we will tell you this is bad. All him at extorting people. This has to be redefined, that who are the regulators. So, and as far as, like I said, as far as we are concerned, NMDPRA is the main regulator that we know in NIPMAN. So please, we want to advise and we want to encourage the NMDPRA to state it clearly to other agencies that is stated in the PIA bill. If you must do anything to any filling station, you have to go through an NMDPRA. That is the regulation. But overzealousness of these people, because they want to extort, they go around, they imperfect even on the road. So we want the NMDPRA to clearly state it and write. Even state governments, because of tax, because of approval, they will come and seal filling station. Whereas they're supposed to liaise with NMDPRA. And to NMDPRA, we want to plead with them because currently we are having an issue that we would dialogue with them. That is incessant increase in the price of payments with them without even having discussion with us. So the regulator, I appeal to you that please always have a discussion with us before you increase, because there was no even communication. No communication. Once you want to do this, there is need to communicate with us. There is need for us to sit down and see what is possible. You cannot come up with strangulating policies that is killing, that is choking people. At the end of the day, people will not, adhere to that policy. We want people to obey government, but government also must do something that is reasonable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a bit surprised because yesterday the regulator said that they have plenty money for infrastructure fund and nobody has asked for money. Hugh, finally.
I think in addition to what the other distinguished speakers at the panel have said, I think two things. One, the NMDPRA has a unique overview of the whole industry. And actually they might be in a unique position also to ensure best practices are shared, and because they can do it without any competition issues or whatever. So I think beyond, let's say, the transition where we are today, I think they have a unique capability potentially bringing the industry further up in sharing best practices. And I think it's not just only for what they see within Nigeria. I think NMDPRA has many contacts with other similar regulatory authorities outside Nigeria. And some of them sometimes come and visit Nigeria. But I think they could also maybe bring some of those learnings from outside Nigeria into Nigeria to help a sustainable and thriving downstream industry. Because I think that's the common interest that we have as competitors in this market and as NMDPRA.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Thank you very much.
One of the advantages of this OTL is provision of practical solutions to the industry problems. And that's why people like us like to attend OTL. My question is directly to Mr. Bob Dickerman of Pinnacle. And by the way, thank you for all the presenters, wonderful presentations and practical approach to these problems of the industry. Now, Mr. Bob, in your presentation, you made mention, by the way, my name is Billy Okoye. You made mention of unrestricted globally convertible currency. I'm aware that in every downstream petroleum products market, the currency in vogue is the domestic currency. And in Nigeria, we use Naira. Are you saying that our Naira is not globally convertible, or are you implying that we use dollars to buy our petroleum products in Nigeria? That's my number one question. Number second is, in your presentation, you also asked, you are talking about asking government to address the current policy challenge. Would you say exactly what you want government to do? I hope you are not telling government to go back to subsidy. So my request that you be more practical in asking what exactly we want government to do, or if, I mean, we have the government here with us. So if there is anything specifically, let's be more specific to this question so that they can handle it a lot more easier. Thank you very much.
Well, I think, first of all, in terms of the whether the Naira is exchangeable, is convertible, the first thing that you need is some level of stability in the value of the Naira. If there was a lot of international trade, imports and exports, with dollars and euros and yen and yuan and Naira, and we were importing and exporting from many different countries and many different currencies, it would be a lot easier to exchange Naira into others. The reason for this parallel market or the black market, or as some of us like to call it because of the shortage, the market, okay, when one market is terribly underfunded and the other market is unlimited, the black market tends to become the market. Nobody wanted that to be the case, but it tends to become the market. Today, as I mentioned, it was 1280. This morning it was 1235. A week ago it was 1000. We clearly do not have stability. Why? So the first thing that I would ask, and this is just an opinion, I don't know the answer, and I'm in no position to tell the government anything. Forgive me, I'm a private citizen working for a private company. It's a Nigerian company, but I care. This is my adopted country. I really do care. I want to see us get this right. But we have to have stability. So what's the cause of the instability? We need to look inwardly and try and figure out what it is that is causing the international market to lose confidence. Are they losing confidence in our currency, or are they losing confidence in our economy? Why? Is it because of the level of debt that the federal government has in relation to its revenues? I'm not even an economist. Forgive me, okay? But I have a master's degree and I have some common sense and I have a lot of experience. So what I would ask is that the government look inwardly and try and make the decisions. But the point that I was simply trying to make, if it's an insight, maybe it's not an insight. Maybe this is so well known that it's not even an insight. But if there is an insight, it is that if we only focus on the short-term issues and the solutions to those short-term issues, no matter how serious they are, and we assume the long-term will take care of itself, it might not. And there are lots of examples. There are lots of examples. And oftentimes those examples, whether you're talking about Germany in the 1920s or you're talking about Venezuela in the 2000s or whatever, you can get to runaway inflation very quickly. And runaway inflation is no good. Look, the Naira losing half of its value in the last 4 months is absolutely inflationary in a country that imports everything, right? We can't disagree that purchasing power has fallen. I don't care if you're buying a house or you're buying rice. Purchasing power has fallen. So if we're going to have to stabilize the economy, we have to address this. The things that are causing people to sell Naira and buy dollars. And that's the net effect. When a market is out of balance and you're buying one and selling the other, the exchange rate changes, right? So we're seeing the results of that. What are the causes? Do we understand the causes? Are we talking to the international community? Do we really understand? If I had a prayer, it would really be that we really do, and it's not just the government. It's anybody who's in a position of leadership or a position of thought leadership, or anybody who can contribute or be an influencer to the government as well, can look at the root causes of what's going on right now, the emergency that we're all suffering from right now, businesses and individuals, and try and understand it so that we can develop a long-term solution, even at the same time that we can't ignore the short-term pains, that those also have to be addressed. That's as simply as I can. I hope it's responsive to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for your time and your wisdom.
ladies and gentlemen. I'll use this opportunity to respond to some of the observations made during the session. All of these participants said one thing or the other. And one of the advice which we take home is the periodic engagement said by Mr. Billy Harry in order to understand the constraints or difficulties being faced by the stakeholders, especially in the retail outlets. So we've taken note of that. And we will look at also the short-term vision of the market, which was also highlighted. In terms of loss control and testing, yes, we have taken note of that. In fact, we've been working with our team in the HSC concerning the in-transit losses, whether by truck, by shuttle vessel, or import vessels. We are looking at that, especially when it relates to the HSC matters in terms of risks of moving products. The trucks, fires, depot, HSC issues, we're looking at that. Level playing field, yes, in terms of Forex, we understand. But again, we've been engaging with the relevant government agencies to ensure that FX is made available to some of the marketers, just like what happened at the beginning of the subsidy regime. So enforcement also, we have been working, but we need the cooperation of all the stakeholders as well, because when we were making our enforcement in terms of standardization, we were also indirectly accused of being hard-handed. It's not that, it's just that we want to put some control into the system. Like someone has said earlier, subsidy has been there for many, many years. So it's been very difficult for others to really accept the difficulties in the commencement or in the process so far. But it's like somebody also said, it's like somebody who is not doing well and go to the hospital. It takes a long time of healing process. So coming out of subsidy into total deregulation, some of our stakeholders are not used to the efficiency in terms of acceptability, control, cost control of their business models. So various self-made regulators, we have been having this engagement, especially with the IPMAN, because some state governments impose levies which are unnecessary. Some other government law enforcement agencies have also taken the liberty of being enforcers, which in most cases is illegal. We have discussed this severally with the stakeholders and will continue to do so, and then reach out to those agencies for the sake of good order. Then best practices and corporate governance, that was the last thing he said. Yeah, we're going to borrow. We've been trying to put, in fact, some policies in place in terms of corporate governance. We worked with Morman. In fact, we had a team that worked for over 2 months trying to bring out some of these salient points in terms of corporate governance. But again, it's going back to the operators or the stakeholders to say you must improve in your corporate governance. It takes a lot. It's a word, corporate governance, but it takes a lot, because if we try to enforce it, even your boards must comply with corporate governance. Your management appointment must comply with corporate governance. Your processes must comply with corporate governance. So it takes a lot. It's easy to say it, but maybe difficult for some of you to implement. But again, this is part of our roadmap. Thank you very much. And once again, I might use this opportunity to thank everybody for participating in this year's OTL week-long event. And I call upon all of you, please, to look forward to 2024, because it's going to be much better. This year, we had a lot of conflicts because we have other events taking place in Abuja. But again, OTL is always the last week of October every year. So let's look forward to next year. We invite all of you to please participate. participate actively, just like we're doing this here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
In